This video is going to look at the VLOOKUP function. You may have come from the VLE, in which case you will have come from this page, the Advanced Functions VLOOKUP section of the spreadsheet task. We have on that page is a link here to open or download a file that we're going to use for this example. So if you click on that, if you click on this, depending how your browser's set up, you may get this, or you can it'll download there, and when we click on that it'll open in Excel. It might open in your browser if you've got Office 365 and Excel Online, in which case you'll need to file, save as, and then download it to your machine before you use it. You can also save it directly by right clicking on this link and clicking on save link as. If it opens, you can just do that instead and it will save it to your downloads folder. I'm going to open that file now. And the VLOOKUP looks really confusing when you look at the instructions for it. But basically all it does is this. If we look at this spreadsheet, this is a spreadsheet that's got a list of drinks available: latte, cappuccino, frappe and Americano, some people, the drink type they're having. It doesn't have a price in there, and obviously because we don't know the price, we can't work out the cost of the drinks or what the service charge is going to be or what the total is. So we need to find out what the price is for each of these people for their drink. Now, if you just take a minute and look, normally we use these sort of things like price lists all the time, and we don't think much of it. If I said Kieran's Americano is going to cost £2.50, I think that makes sense to most people. Most people can figure that out. That's how we do it. And similarly, if I said Kieran's Americano has how much fat in it, we could say, well, it's got 8.6 because we'd look for the fat column here. And that's how we work these sort of things out. So in order to do that, though, we had to find three things, really. We had to find what is it that we're linking these two tables, or what is it that we're trying to find from this table in this table. Okay, where can we find the price? We can only find it in this table, so that's obviously where we're going to look for the price. In order to do that, we have to know what we're looking for. So what we're looking for is whatever matches in these two tables. So there's an Americano there, an Americano, cappuccino, and so on. We won't link it directly to the row. What we'll do is we'll select the whole table. So what we're looking for is the drink type. Okay, the first thing we're looking for is drink type. So what we're looking for, I'm trying to edit that, and I don't know if you noticed at the top here it says, be careful, files from the internet can contain viruses. Unless you need to edit, it's safer to stay in protected view. So we may need to click enable editing before we can make any changes to this document. So I'm going to put in, I'm just going to type this, you don't need to type this. What are we looking for? Well, we're looking for the drink type. Okay, because we need that to find out what the price is for that drink type. Where are we going to find the price that we're looking for? Well, it's not in any of these tables, but it is in this table. So what we're going to do is tell it, well, this table, we're going to use the table without any headers. So we've got drink, portion, weight. We're not going to include that. What we're going to do is we're going to select all of this as where we're going to get it from. So we're going to say it's the drink info table. And then the final thing we need to know is what is it that we want to get back from this table? Once we find Americano, we're going to go along and we want to pull some of this information out. Now in our question it's going to be the price, so we need the price. Now the thing is, obviously Excel's not going to understand it like this. What Excel needs is it in a specific format. So what it's looking for, the drink type, we don't just tell it the drink type, we tell it which cell in our formula has got the value we're looking for. So if we take this top row, and just imagine we're just looking for one at the moment, we're looking for an Americano. Well, actually, what we're looking for is whatever's in B9. So B9 is the cell that contains the value we're looking for. So in our case, that would be B9. Where are we going to get the price from? Well, as I said earlier, we can only get it from this table, and we can get it from the data. So we're just going to take the data. Now, the data starts at E4, and when we're talking about a range in Excel, we separate the start of the range from the end of the range with a colon, which is just two dots. Okay, and then where does it end? Well, it ends in K7. So what I'm saying there is the table I want to look for the information in is from E4 down to K7. And we have to include all of the values. We can't just say, well, we only want to look in this column. Okay, and which column has it? Well, we said the price column. Excel doesn't understand price column, but what it does understand is we've said the table we're looking for it starts here and ends here. So where it starts is column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the price column is column 7. And that's all we need to put in there is the number of the column. It always starts 1 at the left of the table. So we ignore the E, F, G, H. We're not using those. We're just using the column number. And in the formula, these have got specific names. So this first bit is lookup value. That's how Excel thinks of it. Where is table array? And the what is col index num. So it's column index number. Okay, so these are the 3 values that Excel wants to use in the formula. This is how we would translate into English. So what are we looking for? The drink type. Where are we looking for it? In the drink info table. And what do we want to get out of this drink info table? Well, we want to get the price, which is column 7. So these here are going to be the values we're using in our formula. So when you're doing these, always try to do it manually, without using Excel, and just go through the process I did. So you say, well, okay, I want to find the answer to go in here. The name Kieran's not going to tell me, so I can settle on the drink type. And also, this drink type appears in this first column. It's always got to appear in the first column of the lookup table. And then I can manually go, well, an Americano is there. And I'm looking in the whole of this table, because it might not be the first one. If I were looking for cappuccino, I'd have to go down 1 row. And this is what VLOOKUP does. VLOOKUP stands for vertical lookup. It will look up vertically, so going from up and down rather than left to right. It will look down until it finds the value that you're looking for, what. Once it finds it, it will then go across to row number 7. So these are the 3 things we need. Now I'm going to put this formula in. I could type this formula in, but what we can do instead is we can just use the insert function. So we use this FX button here. Just click on that, and that will bring up a list of functions. VLOOKUP may not be in this list here when you first start, so you may need to look for it. So you can just go in there and type VLOOKUP. Incidentally, we won't be using any other type of lookups for this question. They may say in the question in the exam, they may say use a lookup function too. You'll always be just using VLOOKUP, the vertical lookup. Okay, so now I've got VLOOKUP there. I'm going to click on Go, and that then brings the formula up. If I click on OK, we can now see this is asking us to put some information. It's asking us what's the lookup value. So what is the lookup value? Well, that's going to be what are we looking for. So I can get that by clicking on this cell. Okay, and then the table array is the whole of this table without the titles. So I've just selected that. Now, when the course spoke earlier about absolute and relative referencing, this is one of those areas where it applies. When you're doing a VLOOKUP, your table array should always be locked. So we're going to press F4, which will put dollars in. And if you're not sure about this, go back to the absolute referencing section, and that explains it there. Okay, so we've got B9, we've got a what, we've got a where. Now we need to know what we're looking for here. So we're looking for 7. We want the seventh column. Okay. There is also this range lookup. By default, that looks for a nearest match. If we want to make sure it always looks for only an exact match, we can put a 0 in there. By default, it should work without doing that, but if you're not sure, just put a 0 in and that'll make sure it works, or if you're having problems with random answers. And before I click on OK, you can see that on the right here, it actually shows what is in B9. In B9 is Americano. The table array turns that into a list. So we've got Americano 276, 149, 8.6, and so on. So it's actually converting that table into a list. Column index number 7 is the same. and 0 in Excel is counted as false, 1 is true. So that's why that's saying false. And under here it says it's 2.5. That's the actual value it's pulled back. The formula result shows it with formatting. So we've got pound formatting, so it's showing it's pound formatting. If I click on OK, we can see that we've now got £2.50 there. And if I replicate that formula down, you'll see that works. So a latte is £2. One of the nice things about doing this is I can change a value here. I could say, okay, I'm going to cut the price of my latte to £1.75. So if I change that over there to 1.75, for instance, you'll see it's updated. All the currencies of latte are there, and that shows that it's actually pulling that information from that table. So when I did this, I made sure you put the absolute referencing in. I'm going to go back and change this now, just to demonstrate what would happen if you didn't put the absolute referencing. Because I've got a formula in, I can just click on the FX button here. So I said this table array had to be locked. If I take that back so that it's not locked anymore, the very first one works, but when I replicate it down, I start getting these NA errors. Now these are because the references I'm using. So if I double click on here, I can see it highlights in color. So the blue is B9, the red is E4 to K7. This isn't a cell reference and this isn't a cell reference, so they're not colored. Now, as I move that down and do it on the next one, I don't know if you can see what's happening there, is that table array is actually moving down one, because when we replicate, it just adds 1 to the row number. If we're replicating vertically, it just adds 1 to this row number. Now, obviously, we don't want it to do that, because by the time I get down to here, or here, we're actually not even looking at that table. So that's why we use the absolute referencing, so that we can lock that in place. And so if you see these NAs, whenever you're replicating a formula, the chances are you probably need to lock something. You're maybe using a VAT rate or something somewhere that's in a particular cell, and when you move it is moving that to a 0, so you're getting this error. So let's go back to here, FX, and I'm going to lock these again. I'm just using the F4 key, that's function key 4. And what I did there is I just highlighted everything and pressed F4 until I've got dollars in front of both the letters and the numbers in that formula. And now if I replicate that, that now works fine. So we can work out the total of these by doing an equal sum and then grabbing those. That gives us a number. I'm going to quickly work out the service charge. If you don't know how to do this, it's really straightforward. All you need to do is take your percentage charge, or the cell that contains that. So it might be that your percentage charge is in a cell and you have to link it to that. 10%, multiply it by the amount, and that will tell you what 10% of that number is. Okay, so it's rounded it up to 93, but it is 10% of that. So my total would now be that plus that. And you notice I didn't use sum this time because it's only 2 numbers. So I can work out my totals there. Okay, so that's a straightforward one where it's on the same page. What we've got to watch out for is they don't always put it on the same page. I'm going to get rid of this here now so we can clear the table. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this table. Actually, I'm going to delete this formula first. I'm going to just change all those, and this updates to 0 because there's no values. I'm going to just take this, I've highlighted, select it. I'm going to right click and select cut. Not copy, we must use cut. And then I'm going to paste this in B5. When you go to the second tab, drink info, that will already be highlighted. Just go to the top left, right click in there and paste. So we've still got the same information, but it's not actually on the same sheet anymore. So that does give us a little bit of complications, which I'm going to go through just now. So let's start again. We know what we're looking for is the Americano. Where we're looking for it has changed though. We now have to go to the drink info sheet, and we're going to select B7 to H10 this time. And in the column numbers the same, so still column number 7. This is the first column. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, column 7. So let's start doing that, and I'll show you a problem you're going to encounter with this. We'll go to FX. Because we've used VLOOKUP once, it's already on there now. So I can just double click on that. My lookup value is the same. It's an Americano. That's fine. My table array, I have to move down to that field and click on drink info. And when I do that, you'll notice it puts drink info in quotes and an exclamation mark. That just says it's on this sheet. And now I select the range as normal, just there. So I'm selecting all of the data. So it says quotes, drink info, quotes, exclamation mark. So it's put it in twice there because I clicked on it again. If it does things like that, just start again. We'll clear that out because that's confusing us. So we're going to go for drink info and in the range. So we're looking for B7 to H10 on the drink info sheet. Remember, I need to lock this. Really important, because you won't be able to do that visual thing I did earlier where I showed you the box moving. It won't show it because it's on a separate sheet. And my column index number. Now, this is something that happens when you're doing it across multiple sheets. When I click on column index number, watch what happens. It switches back to where the formula is being written. Now, if I didn't know it was column 7, I would have to go and check the column number. What people tend to do is they'll click on here to switch to that table, to that sheet. And now, now say it's 7. Now that's not valid. It must only be a number in there. And the way to avoid doing that, let's get rid of that. I'm going to go back to this part. Now, when I click on column index number and I say, I don't know which column number I need, instead of clicking down here, I'm going to go back to the table array. That will take me back to show the table, and then I can do my count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now when I move back, it switches back again. I can just put 7 in there. I can put a 0 in there if I want to. Okay. And then click on OK. And then let's see what happens. And that works. So that's how you do a basic VLOOKUP. The important things when you're doing a VLOOKUP is to check which column appears in the first column of your lookup table. So for instance, we haven't got names of people in our first column here. We've just got drink type. So it's probably going to be my drink type. And that's the value. And that could be something like a student ID or a license plate number or some other unique identifier. Sometimes it's something like this. Sometimes it will be, as I say, a student ID or a vehicle number or something like that. There are other things you can do with this. For instance, I've just done that as a price. I could also say, well, how much fat is there in that? Just put a border around that. And I'm going to go through the process again. I'm going to do my VLOOKUP. My lookup value is a drink type. Where am I looking for it? Well, I'm looking for it in the drink info sheet on this table. And notice I selected the whole table again. I'm going to lock that by pressing F4. Now my column index number for fat is 1, 2, 3, 4. The fat column is number 4. So I'm going to put a 4 in there. I'll put my 0 in. Don't need to because my table's in alphabetical order, but I'll put it in anyway. Okay, so I'm going to just visually check that. So an Americano has 8.6 grams of fat. Yep, that's right. It's always worth visually checking. I'm going to copy this down and just check. So a latte has 1.1. Does that right? Yep, so latte. So you can see if you've got a table like this, you can get lots of information and pull information from a table quite easily using this function. I'm just going to apply the format in there. So we now have a table and we can pull out all the information from it like that. There is an H lookup function that works the same way, except instead of going down, it goes across. You don't need to use that. There's a lookup function which allows you to do both. We're not going to use that. There's also an X lookup function in Office 365. Again, we're not going to look at that. I will start teaching that in class soon, but I need to make sure that the examining board allowing us to use that as an answer. I hope this has been useful. Look at the resources. If you're stuck, obviously send me a message and I will do what I can to help you with it.